Good evening. I'm Carla Bartlett, Instrumental Music Director here at Keppel High School, and I would like to welcome you to our second annual concert honoring our veterans. We are delighted that you are able to be here tonight to celebrate with us the greatness of our veterans and the service they have provided for us, our communities, and our country. I would like to introduce tonight Mitchell Ing, who is the Vice Mayor of Monterey Park. This concert was Mitchell's idea last year, and it was such a success, we decided we needed to do this again this year. So I would like to invite Mr. Ing to come up and say a few words.
First of all, let me say it's an honor to be here. 2 years ago, I was watching ABC News, and it was featuring a story about the Irvine High School who had a concert for their veterans in Orange County. And so I thought to myself, we can do the same thing. A few days later, I called Dr. Carla Bartlett. I said, is it possible for us to do a concert for our veterans in our community? And she said, absolutely. So with the help of many volunteers, we put this concert together. So once again, I want to thank all of those who helped out in putting these events together. And so I want to welcome everyone to our second annual concert as we give tribute to our veterans. I also want to acknowledge Gary Yamauchi, who's the Alhambra mayor, who's going to be speaking a little later. But if we can acknowledge our mayor from Alhambra, Gary Yamauchi. And it's also my honor to introduce to you the Master of Ceremonies for this concert. If I can introduce to you a senior here from our Keppel High School, Anthony Suarez.
Thank you. First, a presentation of the colors by United States Marine Corps, San Gabriel Office Sergeant Philip Jarrett, followed by a trumpet solo by Kathleen Rendon.
Chief Jim Smith will come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The Chief is a 1983 graduate of Keppel High School. He was active in baseball, choir, Aztec singers, and drama.
Thanks. You please place your hand over your heart and say with me, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please follow me in singing the national anthem.
And now, a presentation by Richard Kelly of the Alhambra American Legion.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for showing up for the second annual of Mark Keppel putting on this fine thing they did last year. And on behalf of Monterey Park American Legion and Alhambra American Legion and the family of all veterans here, we'd like to present a certificate to the Mark Keppel High School Orchestra, a recognition of sincere appreciation for outstanding service and assistance which contribute to the advancement of the American Legion programs, activities dedicated to God and country. So thank you very much, and let's give a big hand to Mark Keppel for doing this.
Reading Heroes by Jared Jenkins, Alec Harang.
In war, there are lives risked and lives taken. Men and women giving their best to defend what they love. They defend their country, their honor, their people. Some call them soldiers, others call them heroes. Our veterans have risked their lives for us. They have lived through hell and fought with honor. Many have killed and regret doing so. For every life there is a soul. For every soul there is a life. For those who have died, we show great appreciation and remembrance. For those who live, along with them, live the horrific memories of battle. Some memories of defeat. Some memories of victory. Our veterans were more than soldiers. They were, and still are, heroes.
And now, reading an excerpt by John F. Kennedy, Billy Rodriguez.
In our hands, my fellow citizens, more than in mine, will rest the final success or failure of our course. Since this country was founded, each generation of Americans has been summoned to give testimony to its national loyalty. The graves of young Americans who answered a call to service surround the globe. Now the trumpet summons us again, not as a call to bear arms, though arms we need, not as a call to battle, though embattled we are, but a call to bear the burden of a long twilight struggle, year in and year out, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, a struggle against the common enemies of man, tyranny, poverty, disease, and war itself. Can we forge against these enemies a grand of global alliance, north and south, east and west, to assure a more fruitful life for all mankind? Will you join in this historic effort? And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
And now, reading Freedom is Not Free by Ashley Person, Kristen Martinez.
There is a price we pay for freedom, for it is not truly free, but rather paid for by the contributions of veterans to buy our liberty. We should honor the veterans, for they act like a shield, protecting us from danger, keeping America healed. So if you would take a second to commemorate, you will instantly see we owe veterans our gratitude, for they are the reason we are free.
Now, we will be honoring our veterans. Will the veterans in the audience please stand when you hear your name? Doc Foster graduated from Mark Keppel in 1943, the school's 7th graduating class. He was a naval medic on a transport ship in the Pacific Ocean during World War II. Doc has served 44 years as the medic to our Aztec football team. Gary Kazan, a Mark Keppel High School graduate class of 2000, the second class communication petty officer, United States Navy 2000 to 2004, grandson of Doc Foster. Herbert Aguirre Jr., Lincoln High School graduate, class of 1949. Lincoln High School graduate, class of 1949, Master Sergeant, 2nd Division, 38th Regiment, United States Army. Wounded in 1950 in the Korean War, received the Purple Heart Medal. Gilbert Almanzon, graduated Garfield High School, class of 1957. 1st Battalion, 36th Field Artillery, United States Army, 1959 to 1962. Rudy Alviso, graduated from Jordan High School in 1959. Served as an E-3 airman in the U.S. Navy from 1957 to 1959. German Baltazar, a Lincoln High School graduate, class of 1953. Served in the U.S. Army in 1953. During the Korean War, served in the 28th and 9th Infantry Division. Albert Bartlett, served in the 8th Air Force as a second lieutenant and later a lieutenant colonel in Rattlesden Air Force Base in England in 1944. He's the father of our own instrumental music instructor, Dr. Carla Bartlett. Gilbert Beltran, graduated from Garfield High School, class of 1957. Served as an Army Specialist, 4th class, during 1962 and 1964. Gilbert Cardoza, Commander. Graduated from Roosevelt High School in 1966. Served in the 11th Armor Cavalry Air Troop in the U.S. Army from 1967 to 1969 in Vietnam. Joseph Cortez. Graduated from Garfield High School in 1966. Served as a corporal in the U.S. Marines in Vietnam from 1966 to 1970. Dan Flores. Attended Keppel High School for 2 years. Graduated from Alhambra High School, class of 1970. Served as an airman in the U.S. Air Force in 1971 and as a captain in the Army. Charles Hartnett, graduated from Oak Park High School in Illinois. Served as a private first class in the U.S. Army from 1954 to 1956. Joe Hernandez, graduated from West High School from Salt Lake City, Utah in 1954. Served in the United States Marine Corps in Korea from 1954 to 1956. Chuck Hooks, U.S. Navy, 1943. Student of Keppel High School. Later became a teacher at Keppel High School from 1955 to 1961. Coached varsity basketball, football, gymnastics, and taught metal and machine shop. Tomotsu Itsuzaki. Tamo Itsuzaki. Attended Manzanar High School. Graduated from Garnerville High School in Nevada in 1945. Served as a private first class, 2nd Division in the Army from 1945 to 1947. Len Jasmine. Keppel High School graduate. United States Navy, 1946. Joe Kawata. Graduated from Oxnard High School in 1939. Served as a Staff Sergeant, Military Intelligence in the Army from 1944 to 1946. Ernest Leyva. Attended Norgales High School in Arizona. Served as Corporal in the U.S. Army in 1953. Anti-aircraft artillery and field artillery. Alfredo Lopez. Roosevelt High School, 1952. Served in the 11th Airborne Division and in the 7th Ranger Airborne Company in 1950 to 1953 in Japan. Thomas McCready. Graduated from Cathedral High School in 1964. Served as a corporal in the U.S. Marine Corps. Currently is a chaplain in the Monterey Park American Legion Post 397. Ray Molina. Attended from Roosevelt High School, served in the United States Navy as a first-class seaman from 1945 to 1949. Ralph Mondragon. Graduated from Franklin High School, class of 1970. Served as a specialist in the Army from 1971 to 1973. Louis Morales. Attended Roosevelt High School in 1951. Served as a medical corps frontline medic for the U.S. Army during 1958 to 1964. Edward Morin. Graduated from Santa Monica High School in 1939. Served in the U.S. Navy as a third-class radio man from 1942 to 1945. Ruben Ramirez. Graduated from Roosevelt High School, class of 1950. Served as a corporal in the 24th Division of the U.S. Army from 1951 to 1953. Ernie Rodriguez. Graduate of Roosevelt High School in 1949. Served in the U.S. Army in the 7th Division, 31st Regiment in Korea during 1950 to 1952. Ray Roscoe. Attended Keppel High for 1 year and later graduated from Roosevelt High School in Fresno, 1956. Served as a corporal in the 4th Infantry Division of the U.S. Army from 1956 to 1963. Gabriel Suarez. Graduated from San Gabriel High School in 1987. Served as a private first class E3 in the U.S. Army 10th Mountain Division from 1990 to 1993. Tim Tsui. Graduated from Mission High School in San Francisco in 1945. Served as a United States Naval Hospital Corpsman, pharmacist mate, 3rd class. Ray Villalobos. Lincoln High School graduate, class of 1952. Served in the U.S. Army in Germany during 1953 to 1955. Mike Yanez. Graduated from Montebello High School in 1944. Served as a radio man for the U.S. Army in 1945. Sinclair Yip. Graduated from Jefferson High School in 1942. Served as a lieutenant in the U.S. Navy during World War II and the Korean War from 1943 to 1954. Ron Brown. Keppel High School graduate, class of 1968. Served in the United States Air Force 1970 to 1974. Paul Young. A Keppel High School graduate. Jack Gear. Keppel High School, class of 1942. Russ Brown. Keppel High School, class of 1945. United States Navy, 1945. Marvin Merrill. Keppel High School graduate class of 1943. Served in the U.S. Navy for 4 years. Alan Miyatake would like to thank all our veterans so much for serving our country. Alonso Fuente. Served as a specialist in the U.S. Army. Don Secchi. Served as a corporal in the U.S. Army 442nd Regiment Combat Team during World War II. Frank Fukuzawa. Served as a technical staff sergeant in the U.S. Army 442nd Regiment Combat Team during World War II. George Fujimori. Served as technical sergeant in the U.S. Army 442nd Regiment Combat Team during World War II. Hironishi Kubo. Staff Sergeant in the U.S. Army 442nd Regimental Combat Team during World War II. James Murata. Military Intelligence Service T3 in the U.S. Army 442nd Regimental Combat Team during World War II. James Ogawa. Served as Private First Class in the U.S. Army 442nd Regimental Combat Team during World War II. Ken Akune. Served as Military Intelligence in the U.S. Army 442nd Regimental Combat Team during World War II. Tetsu Asato. Served as Private First Class in the U.S. Army 442nd Regimental Combat Team during World War II. Victor Abe. Served as a D4 in the U.S. Army Military Intelligence 442nd Regimental Combat Team during World War II. Edward Garcia, U.S. Navy. Served as a radio man 2nd Class E5 in the U.S. Navy from 1968 to 1972. Served in Nîmes, Greece from 1971 to 1972. Rolando Rodriguez. Served as an E4 in the U.S. United States Marine Corps. Tally Yi. Served as a Specialist 4 in the U.S. Army from 1969 to 1970 in Vietnam. To all the veterans in our audience not introduced, please rise. Okay. We have Gary Yamauchi, Alhambra Mayor.
Well, good evening, everyone. Mitchell, thank you for inviting me today. You know, I'm always delighted to have an opportunity to pay tribute to the men and women of the armed forces, and also to honor the veterans that have sacrificed during their time in the service. So, again, to all you veterans who are out there, thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart. You saw on the video here, on the screen here, several of the guys that were classified as members of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. And they made up a group called the Go for Broke. Go for Broke was their battle cry, and that's really how they fought. They fought giving it their all. When Japan bombed Pearl Harbor in December 7, 1941, shortly thereafter, just a few days, all the Japanese Americans who were either in the Army, whether they were citizens or not, they were reclassified as 4C. 4C was an enemy alien. So all of a sudden, regardless of whether they were citizens, all their rights were taken away. And this was December of 1941. In April of 1942, just a few months after that, a presidential order 9066 came down and forced all the Japanese Americans who lived on the West Coast, approximately 120,000 of them, to pack up their belongings, bring whatever they could to various congregation centers, and they were shipped off to various camps around the United States. Internment camps is what they were called. Many of them lost their businesses, they lost their homes, they lost their cars, they lost their friends, they lost their pets. So it was a very difficult time. But it was a time where there was a tremendous amount of prejudice, and the Japanese Americans were highly suspect because of the bombing of Pearl Harbor by the country of Japan. In fact, my parents and my wife's parents both were rounded up. They were sent to Santa Anita, where actually they lived in the stables of Santa Anita for like 6 months until the barracks were built, and eventually they were shipped to Arkansas, and they stayed in a camp called Roar, Arkansas, and they were there for like 3 or 4 years. From these camps, it's just an amazing thing because while all their rights had been taken away, and these camps were actually like prisons. They were barbed wired. They had military guards all around the camp with rifles and machine guns that were loaded, and to keep all the Japanese Americans in those prisons. But from those camps came several Japanese Americans who wanted to prove their loyalty. And so they volunteered for the United States Army. They were finally allowed to join the Army, but they were in a segregated group. There were like 3 segregated groups during World War II. The Tuskegee Airmen, which were the African Americans, the Navajo Code Talkers, and the the Go for Broke Japanese Americans from the 442nd, the 100th Battalion, and the Military Intelligence Service. Those three groups made up what they call the 442nd. Myself, I'm a member of the Go for Broke National Education Center, and our mission is to tell the story, maybe one of the greatest American stories ever told. It's hard for me to, I don't know exactly where to begin, but I'll just kind of go chronologically. Finally, they were allowed, after setting training record after training record at Camp Shelby, they were allowed to actually go overseas and actually fight their first few battles. They did that in North Africa and in Italy. And they had a tremendous record of winning these battles in short periods of time. Sometimes they would have to capture a particular city. They estimated it would take them 3 weeks. They did it in 1 week. They would have to break through this enemy line. It was estimated they could maybe break through in 3 days. They did it in 2 hours. It was just a remarkable thing what they did. One of the top generals in the United States Army said they were the problem. Now they're the solution. So anyway, they kept going on and on and on, fighting various battles. One of the most famous battle they fought was the Battle of the Lost Battalion, where a Texas battalion was trapped behind enemy lines. There had been 2 or 3 attempts to rescue them, and it couldn't be done. They called in the 442nd, and the 442nd rescued the Lost Battalion in 3 days. You'll have to excuse me because I get really choked up when I talk about these guys. Anyway, they rescued 217 Texans who were trapped behind enemy lines. They had 800 casualties in rescuing the 217. I Company had 165 men who went up the hill. Only 8 came down. F Company had 167 men that went up the hill, and only 12 came down. The other part of the 442nd was the Military Intelligence Service. What they did was they were able to intercept the codes of the Japanese, I think it was General MacArthur said, never in the history of any military service did we know more about the enemy than we did because of the Military Intelligence Service. President Truman felt that they shortened the war by 2 years and probably maybe saved over 1 million lives. So that was a tremendous thing. And for all this, last week, they were bestowed the Congressional Medal of Honor by the United States Senate and the United States House of Representatives, which is the highest civilian honor that can be bestowed upon any individual. And I had the opportunity myself to go to Washington, D.C. to attend that ceremony. And believe me, it was just a wonderful thing for them. Throughout their coming out of these camps, fighting for freedom that they didn't even have. Their parents, their families were imprisoned, and they were out there fighting for the freedom. Very unusual circumstance. Anyway, for their size and length of service, they became the most decorated unit in the United States military history. And here's why. They had 8 presidential citations, 20 Distinguished Service Crosses, 21 Medals of Honor, 560 Silver Stars. Excuse me. 4,000 Bronze Stars, 22 Legion of Merit medals, 15 Soldier medals, 4,000 Purple Hearts, and lastly, as I just mentioned, the Congressional Gold Medal. So I congratulate them, and I congratulate all the veterans who served and to protect our flag and what it stands for, all our freedom that we have in this country. So thank you very much to all the veterans and the servicemen who are anyway, I can't tell you how proud I am to be a part of the Go for Broke, and we do everything we can to tell their story, one of the greatest American stories. So thank you all very much.
Now, Alyssa Sanchez reading Heroes Die for Me by Jamie Burns.
You risked everything. You faced death each day. You faced fear, faced many terrible things. And because of you, my thank yous ring out. Filling the sky, echoing from the hills, they find their way to the graveyards. And to all of you still living, you are a special kind of person. To anyone who has ever served this country, and to those serving today, thank you.
Now reading A Nation's Strength by Walt Whitman, Brianna Becerra.
A Nation's Strength by Walt Whitman. Not gold, but only man can make a people great and strong. Men who for truth and honor's sake stand fast and suffer long. Brave men who work while others sleep, who dare while others fly. They build a nation's pillars deep and lift them to the sky.
Well, thank you on behalf of all of us here at Mark Keppel for coming to our concert, for honoring us with your presence. And veterans, we can never say thank you enough. So we hope that you receive our thank yous through our music, and know that you will always be in our hearts, the gratitude that we have for you. I believe that, Mr. Ing, did you want to have all the veterans up front for a picture with the band at this point? Okay, so could all the veterans please come up? Join us right in front of the stage here. We'll have a last photo. And then the band will exit, and we'll have a reception in the lobby. All the veterans come up front, please.
Once again, if we can give our veterans a round of applause. And if I can ask the audience to remain sitting, the marching band is going to march out of the auditorium. And plus, I also want to recognize Councilwoman of Monterey Park, Teresa Real Sebastian, who's in our audience, if I can acknowledge and recognize her. So once again, on behalf of Mark Keppel High School, we want to thank all of you for coming out. And there is refreshments outside, but once again, if I can ask you to remain seated until the band exits the auditorium. Thank you.